For nearly 30 years, the Soviet Union had spies at the very heart of British intelligence. Not cleaners, not low-level clerks. The heads of departments, the men who read every secret, who knew every agent, who decided what information Britain shared with its allies. 5 of them, all recruited at the same university, all from Britain's most privileged families, all working for Moscow. And for decades, nobody knew. This is the story of the Cambridge Five, the most damaging spy ring in the history of the Western world. To understand how this happened, you need to understand Cambridge University in the early 1930s. Britain was in the grip of the Great Depression. Unemployment was devastating working-class communities. Fascism was rising across Europe. The old order seemed to be failing everyone except the privileged few. And at Cambridge, one of the most elite universities in the world, a group of brilliant young men looked at the world around them and drew a conclusion. Capitalism was broken. Democracy was failing. Only one ideology seemed to offer a genuine alternative: communism. This was not unusual thinking for idealistic young students in the 1930s. What was unusual was what 5 of them did next. They were recruited by Soviet intelligence, and they agreed to spend their lives as spies. The 5 were Kim Philby, Donald MacLean, Guy Burgess, Anthony Blunt, John Cairncross. 5 names, 5 careers, 5 decades of betrayal. What made the Cambridge Five so extraordinarily dangerous was not just that they were spies. It was where they ended up. Kim Philby rose to become head of the Soviet counterintelligence section of MI6, the British Foreign Intelligence Service. He was personally responsible for hunting Soviet spies. He was one. Donald MacLean became a senior diplomat with access to top-level Anglo-American communications, including early discussions about nuclear weapons development. Guy Burgess worked inside the Foreign Office, passing diplomatic secrets to Moscow for years. Anthony Blunt became director of the Courtauld Institute, and during the war served in MI5, Britain's domestic intelligence service, passing the identities of British agents to the Soviets. John Cairncross worked at Bletchley Park, the top-secret code-breaking facility, and passed decoded German military intelligence directly to Moscow, including, crucially, German military dispositions before the Battle of Kursk, one of the largest tank battles in history. Together, across their careers, the Cambridge Five passed an almost incalculable volume of secrets to the Soviet Union. The scale of the damage they caused is still not fully known. What is known is devastating enough. Philby alone is believed to have caused the deaths of hundreds of Western agents, men and women who were sent into the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe on operations that Moscow already knew about before they even began. Operations were blown before they started, networks dismantled, agents arrested, interrogated, executed. All because the man running British counterintelligence was simultaneously running their details to the enemy. MacLean's intelligence about nuclear weapons development was passed to Moscow at the exact moment the Soviets were building their own bomb. Intelligence that some historians believe accelerated the Soviet nuclear program by years. Think about what that means. The Cold War, the decades of nuclear standoff that defined the second half of the 20th century, was shaped in part by secrets stolen from Britain by men who had been to the same university, attended the same dinner parties, and moved in the same elite social circles as the people they were betraying. The Cambridge Five were not caught through brilliant intelligence work. They were caught, or escaped, through a combination of luck, incompetence, and the courage of a few individuals who were ignored for too long. The first crack appeared in 1951. American codebreakers working on a project called Venona, a program decrypting old Soviet communications, identified a British diplomat passing secrets to Moscow. The trail led to Donald McLean, but before he could be arrested, he was tipped off by Kim Philby. McLean and Burgess fled to Moscow in May 1951, disappearing from a ferry in France, leaving their lives, their families, their careers behind. Their defection caused a sensation, and suspicion immediately fell on Philby, who had been their friend and colleague. But Philby was not arrested. Not yet. He was too trusted, too senior, too well-connected. It wasn't until 1963 that the evidence against him became undeniable. Philby was confronted in Beirut by an MI6 officer. And then he too disappeared. He turned up in Moscow, granted Soviet citizenship, given a medal. Blunt, who had been quietly identified as the fourth man years earlier, was given immunity from prosecution in exchange for a confession. His identity was kept secret by the British government until 1979. Cairncross confessed in 1964, also given immunity. His role kept largely quiet for decades. The Cambridge Five never faced trial. McLean died in Moscow in 1983. Burgess died in Moscow in 1963, an alcoholic, homesick, never truly at home in the country he had chosen over his own. Philby died in Moscow in 1988, decorated by the KGB, a hero to one country, a traitor to another. Blunt died in Britain in 1983, stripped of his knighthood, publicly disgraced. Cairncross died in France in 1995. 5 men who believed they were changing the world. Whether they were right, history has delivered its verdict. But what they achieved as spies, the access, the duration, the damage, has never been equaled. If this story surprised you, share it. Subscribe for more untold history every week. And let me know in the comments, do you think any spy ring like this could exist today? I'll see you in the next one.